Hello, dear reader. How are you? Welcome back to Cheers Kevin Reads, where today we're doing another book review, because that's what day it is. It's the day to do a book review. Today I'm reviewing Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I do have a Goodreads page open over here, just in case. So if you see my eyes dart over, it's me going, oh, what was the name of that? What was the Blake Crouch? Yeah, Blake Crouch. I was right. No need to second guess. It's been a good week for me reading-wise, although I have discovered I'm still trying to get through The Stand. I'm like a quarter of the way through, and then I was like, all right, I need to set this down and then just go through, read like 8 other books, and then come back. We'll get to this. But I actually have 2 books that I'm excited to review. I'm reviewing this one, and I'm reviewing another one that'll go up next week. I'm excited to talk about as well. So, Dark Matter. Now, this is a book where I want to be... So I saw this popping up on my Goodreads in a whole bunch of different areas, and it has a kind of striking title or striking cover, so I felt like, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and read that, and pull the thing down like Dark Matter, and I was like, oh well, this will be some sort of cool sci-fi story about not regular matter. Dark matter, of course, being the matter that we know the universe has, because gravity operates as though the mass is there, but we can't identify by any means. Anyway, so I'm going to be careful with this book because it's like a sci-fi thriller, and I don't want to. One of the things with thrillers is it feels like anything that you say is a spoiler, right? The first quarter of the book is hooks, and there's bits of suspense where I feel like anything that I'm going to say is going to be a minor spoiler. So I'm going to potentially spoil like the intro to the book, I guess, but I'll try and avoid that, and I'll alert you that real spoilers are coming and then go away, because I feel like really to talk about this, we do need to talk about stuff after things have happened. So, okay, the plot summary that I can give you is that there's this guy Jason, and he is a physics professor at a community college, I believe, and one day, he is kidnapped, and he wakes up and he doesn't know what's going on. That's pretty much as spoiler-free as I can give it to you. The the slightly less spoiler-free version is that an alternate timeline version of Jason kidnaps Jason, and Jason needs to get back to his family by navigating through the multiverse. And that's not spoiling a lot, but it does ruin a little bit of the suspense at the beginning. So I apologize for that if it's like, oh no, I needed the tension for that chapter or two before you start to figure out what's going on. Anyway, so yeah, without being, I feel like with the majority of this review, I do have to sort of spoil everything, but I just want to give sort of my general thoughts. This reminded me a fair bit of Michael Crichton, which, granted, I haven't read in a long time, but generally Michael Crichton books are like, hey, here's this high concept, and I'm just going to set a story that is based around it, and then really more of the enjoyment that you get from the book is less about the story itself and more about the concept of like, oh, wow, what if nanobots were a thing? And just kind of extrapolating it out in your own mind after you read the story of like, oh, well, here's one way things could go down. You go, well, that's crazy. And then you just, yeah. This very much reminded me of that in the sense that, to some extent, to some extent, it's like, hey, here's some sci-fi trope. Because I think the multiverse stuff, I don't think he brought anything new to the maybe. I don't know. I don't think he brought anything particularly new to the multiverse idea. This isn't like, oh, here's some crazy tech that nobody's writing about. But more of it's, here's an idea about the multiverse and how that can work, and then setting a story around it. So maybe for people who, haven't heard of the multiverse, but I feel like it's a trope at this point. Parallel universes are a trope. We had the Star Trek mirror universe back in the 60s. So I think we've got it. I said, I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was between a 3 and a 4. It wasn't hugely for me. I think there was an awful lot of, really just sort of using the, just sort of, let's just lean on the trope and then write a story in there. I feel like if you're going to try and highlight, the idea that you want to be, a high concept story, you really want to bring something, I don't know, some new perspective and I don't know, new things to think about. the idea of, I guess maybe that's just because I happen to read stuff that introduced me to things. When there were plenty of other books that also covered them. But I feel like generally, if you're going to do some sort of The Invention of Lying is the movie that was not great. But the idea is like, okay, well, let's explore the consequences of this in a way that other people haven't. And I don't know that this necessarily did that. I think it was, another multiverse story. Not to completely discount it, but that's pretty much all I can say without going into heavy spoilers, because I think the end of the book, the last kind of the third act of the book, was a little bit better in that regard. We'll talk about that after the break, which is coming up right now. So spoilers, blur, 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 go away if you don't want to be spoiled. And yeah, let's talk about the rest of the book. So, Jason, I don't know if I said James before. So Jason is kidnapped by the alternate version of himself, because that's how the timelines work. That he splits off. There's a version of himself that did not marry his wife after his wife got pregnant, and instead went and was much more successful in his career and developed a multiverse traveling machine, which is very cool for alternate timeline Jason. But alternate timeline Jason is sad because he's not with the woman who could have been his wife. So he just goes and he finds some universe where he stayed with the woman, and then just kind of swaps. Now, the interesting thing about this idea, though, is that then the kidnapped Jason gets back and discovers that he's not the only kidnapped Jason to then be trying to return to his family. Like the whole rest of because the universe, the idea of the multiverse is that that there's an infinite number of if you imagine the universe as being like a movie, there's an infinite number of frames after the freeze frame that you're looking at, where everything goes just a little bit differently. And so there are alternate versions of Jason who were also kidnapped but come back, and then so it ends up just being like there are tons and tons and tons of Jasons who are all trying to convince this woman and her son that they're the original, and they don't know that they're not. But it raises them, and so there's this sort of it gets kind of a little prisoner's dilemma-y, in terms of just trying to figure out how do we want this person to be happy. So, but obviously we can't all, and the Jasons start killing each other because they would do anything to get back. And it just gets sort of, and you have to sort of psych out they keep doing what they try and do. Like one of them will try and do something and then realize that another version of them has already done exactly that thing. Anyway, it ends up being a little crazy. And then that I think is probably when I was talking about sort of the high concept idea of, explore some consequences of this. I guess that's the closest that you can come to, is that the idea of, whether it's multiverse travel or time travel or whatever, whenever you sort of do something weird with your timeline, theoretically, there could be an infinite other number of yous that are doing the same thing and then also fragment off into their own little timelines. And you can then encounter people. So it's if you go back in time to visit yourself, you're not just dealing with you and past you're dealing with you and past you and maybe some other yous. And then you end up with this whole weird issue of sort of identity. And there's some points where the character pontificates about how I'm not my one timeline. I am everything. I am everything I could possibly have done. And kind of the idea of identity being not just a single path through, I guess, traditional plot narrative. I don't know. Anyway, it was okay. Dark Matter, the title doesn't make a ton of sense to me. It doesn't seem like that really fits. But other than that, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but was not ultimately as exciting as I would have liked. I don't know what I would have liked. Those are just my thoughts. I don't. If you've read the book, please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Otherwise, I would recommend that you read if you're the type of person that likes sci-fi thriller type of stuff. If you're a fan of Michael Crichton stuff, I'm thinking in particular of Prey. I think is the one that it reminds me of. Though it's nothing to do with plots, couldn't be more dissimilar. But basically that general idea. Other than that, I will see you next week with another review for a book that I really, really, really am excited to talk about. So stay tuned next week. Be sure to subscribe so you're around for that. and I will see you then. Cheers.